welcome to the Hard Drive Video Studios.
Happy to be here.
We're so pleased to have you here. And originally, I was just going to see you, Austin, and you, Aaron, and surprise, the rest of the
brought the whole gang.
Yep, we're an entourage.
We brought the whole gang. We rolled deep.
So you guys are on a tour as we speak, playing in its entirety your fabulous brand new album, Cold World. How has this been going, and whose idea was it to do it in its entirety?
Well, it was kind of all of ours. It's something that we've never done before, and we feel like this album is best listened to front to back. And we thought, what better way to do it than initially we were just going to play these shows, just playing some of the new songs. And as we started learning them, we realized, well, not learning them, obviously we know them, but relearning them, preparing them for tour, we were like, we should just play the whole album. That'd be cool. And sure enough, we did it in LA, and it was hugely successful. I thought it was really cool to see those songs live and in that kind of live setting, because that's kind of how we write them. We always kind of think about that in mind.
I wish everyone could hear the album for the first time by seeing it live at a show. I mean, it was electric in there. The energy was just, you could cut a knife through the air. It was just palpable. It was awesome. Everyone was jumping up and down, and the songs they just came out that day, and people were singing along so loud. And then the singles that we released, like Pain and Real, those were just even more insane, and everyone was it was great. I was saying earlier, I was watching live videos from that show on the drive over here, and man, it was great. And
Can't wait to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's so cool to be able to play the record from front to back and really get into it and get into the vibe and perform it how we hear it, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, I think, I can't comment because I'm so upset that I'm not going to be here tomorrow night. So
It's okay, family
I'm
first.
just going to say that I hope somebody out there films the whole thing, and I'll get to see it at some point. So let's talk about making this record. I know it wasn't the same sort of experience that you had the first time around working with the producer David Bendeth. This time you guys were very much focused on what it was you wanted to do as opposed to maybe what the producer was suggesting that you do.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, you and I talked about that while we were on tour with Slipknot and Manson, and I told you there's a lot of times in the record where we were like, okay, this is what we want to do, and places we had to put our feet down, and having all five of us bringing different elements to the table and even instruments outside of our own to the table, and it's really cool to do that and to work with what's best for the song and what vision is going to go best with each song. And like one Contagious, for example, I had the idea and the vision of what I kind of wanted it to sound like and how the chorus was, and our producer fought me on it. I was like, no, and we actually got to show it to a fan of ours while we were in the studio, and it was one of her favorite songs. And it's a great song now, and everybody likes it. And so it's just little things like that where we really got to we got to know him more. We did 1.5 records with him already, and he knew us very well, and that's why we went back to him in the first place, was to build that relationship and to further what we had learned from Restoring Force with our new record and with more of the sounds that we wanted to try to experiment with.
What were some of those things you wanted to experiment with? Because earlier when we were sitting out in the kitchen, we were talking about the music interlude portions of the album and how they invoked a little bit of Nine Inch Nails, a little bit of Tool, and then I think the song Plus should be on a movie soundtrack somewhere. But talk about that a little bit.
Just a little bit. I mean, I think we really wanted to kind of create a vibe, and the album's structured the way it is for a reason, and it starts off with, the first 2 words of the record are Cold World, the name of the album, and Game of War with Aaron really kind of setting the mood into The Lie, and we love how the record kind of unfolds like that. We really wanted to experiment with different sounds for different songs, and I think that with Restoring Force we kind of took a step in that direction, but with Cold World we actually got to follow through with a few of those ideas, and it was cool to just have the challenge alone of trying to do different songs. We don't want to write the same song twice or the same record twice, and so it's always exciting to push yourself in that aspect, especially when you're writing something as important as an album and spending 3.5 months on it.
I mean, and you had very intense situations happening in your life when you were, starting to write these lyrics. While you were going through, all of that intense, you had surgeries and rehab and just all these things. You were getting over painkillers that you were taking and antidepressants. You had, 2 very serious surgeries. One had to do with opening your heart up and replacing your aorta.
Yeah, that one was about 5 years ago now.
Oh,
but the
okay.
2 I had in November and January were, one was a total hip restructure and reshaping and removed 3 cysts that were on my femur. And then the other one was they removed like 4 inches of my rib and my cartilage. And then they had to sew my dural sac in my head, which is like the sac that holds your brain fluid, because it was leaking into my spine because I was headbanging. So every time I would like push or kind of do any kind of sexual activity and have that rush, it would just, and it would light me up. But I'm okay now.
Good. But so here you are writing lyrics for all this. Now, meanwhile, what are you guys all doing? I mean, certainly, it was kind of scary with his situation.
For sure. We were writing the music for it, and really we wanted this record to really be about what the lyrics needed to be, and with a lot of our records, they are very personal, but this album in particular is probably the most personal album and collection of songs that we've ever had. And I think you can hear it in the tone of the music, and you can hear it in the lyrics and the delivery of the lyrics, whether they're being screamed at you or they're being sang. It really was like important for us to kind of like personify with what was going on. And, like, he's our quarterback. This is our singer, our friend, our brother, and we're seeing all this stuff happen. And it took a big effect on all of us. And I think you can really hear it in our album, though. And I feel like it's very honest. And if you read into the lyrics and you look and see further than face value of the album, you'll understand like what everyone went through in this process. And the songs are absolutely written about those things and about our reality and our cold world in ourselves, what we see in front of us and what we are supposed to experience. And it's kind of like, we hope that any of our fans or any listeners will take that away from the album and really realize that was how we dealt with it, all of us together.
By writing music.
Yeah, we wrote an album, and it changed all of our lives. I know that this last year, everyone's life changed in like more ways than I think we really expected or were ready for. And the only way that we know how to cope with that is through music, because we're musicians and we're going to do different things and try different sounds. And because we were feeling different, like that. And that's what the album's about, is it's encapsulating that and trying to personify with what was going on and us understanding it fully, because we didn't, like nobody gave us a handbook on life. We don't know how to do this stuff, but the only way we know what to do is with music, and it helps us. It's therapy for us, and we know that it can help other people too. And that's why we do it.
Was there ever a moment that you thought that, maybe he wasn't going to recover, that things were going to change dramatically?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tons.
We had tons of moments where we didn't know if we were going to finish the record or if we were going to go back out on tour. And I think, through those, you can hear a lot of that in the record too, just kind of the uncertainty of just life. For us, most of the time when you're in a band that is touring somewhat successfully, a lot of times your life is booked out 2 years in advance. So you have everything. Here's what we're going to be doing. And then suddenly when all that gets taken away, sometimes having all the time in the world is way more frightening than not having enough. But I think, we all pulled through it, especially Austin. And I think that was kind of a highlight of making this record, was getting through it and creating something that we're hugely proud of.
And, I think especially for you, because I remember on the last record, they had to kind of pull you a little bit to get you to do more vocals. Mm-hmm. And now you've really come into your own. I mean, this record is, these songs are just as much vocally yours as they are Austin's. So you've obviously found that confidence in yourself.
Yeah, and making this record, even compared to the last one, was much more collaborative. We all sat 5 of us in a room 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and just wrote songs together. And it just kind of organically happened that way, where there wasn't so much thought about who's going to do this, who's going to do this. It all just kind of discovered itself as we worked it out.
Phil, give me some songs that you want to talk about from the a studio experience. Like an anecdote or something.
Yeah,
about
of course.
Something.
My favorite song on the album is the song called "Away." When we were going through the start of the album, deciding which songs that we're going to make the cut or make like the list of songs that we want to keep pursuing. This song was on the brink of not being on the album, but then, it's a song that we continued to fight for and believed in so much, and we knew that it could be something amazing. So once that song developed to be what it was, with the vocals and when everything was finished, it gave me chills because it wasn't supposed to make the album. So the fact that it's on the album and then the fact it came out how it did, just shows as a band, that our style, that song style is so different than everything we've done too. So the fact that we could do something kind of like that different, and then keep pursuing that and finishing it and then sounding as it does is like a true testament to who we are as a band.
Definitely. And oops, sorry. I was going to say that this album really displays beautifully the two sides of Mice and Men. You have the super heavy like pain and lie and that side of you, and then you have the real quote unquote side, and I'm just curious, is there a sound that you prefer? Is there a sound that you think is more distinctive? Is there?
I think it just depends on the day. It depends on how you feel. That's why I like having our records do what they do, because all of my favorite records that I've ever listened to do the same thing. There's songs on the record where if I'm getting ready in the morning, I'll listen to number 1, 2, 4, and 6. If I'm going to bed at night on the same record, I'll listen to 9, 10, and 12. And there's tons of albums that I do that with, and I'll go to the same band and I'll have a playlist, but it's from 3 different records, and I think that's what we really wanted to do with this record. Is there's different sounds that we wanted to experiment with and we want to do, and things that we want to do and pursue different songs and tones and sounds and as musicians and as people, and vocally I kind of stepped out a lot with this record, and it's something that we want to continue to do more of. We're at the end of the day, we're musicians, and we make this to share our story with the people that listen to it, but it's cathartic for us, and we do a lot of it because it's what we love to do, and I think that's something that I think can also shows through with Cold World, and just the fact that we made it out, like Aaron said, and so it's really cool to have something that is so different. You have a song like Relentless, and then you turn around and have Transfigured, or you go from The Hunger to Game of War. They're all so different, and it's cool because we like pursuing those different things. And with our next album, we're going to pursue even more different kinds of heavier songs, different kind of melodic songs, different because that's what we want to do as musicians.
Alan, how about your perspective on these songs?
I just like to make music. That's about it. I don't like to think about it or put any sort of deeper meaning. I just like to jam.
But when you guys get together to record, give me a scenario of like how a song would start.
Well,
first Alan would take his shirt off.
Yeah,
and then
lights are off.
Lights
Shirts
are off.
off.
Alan's shirt's off for sure. He's running around.
Yeah.
The session started and we can't find him.
Yeah, where's Alan?
Yeah,
Tape's rolling. We're burning daylight. Alan's missing.
outside. Usually he goes outside with his guitar because he has a wireless and it's nice and sunny. So we're like looking around like, oh yeah, I hear his guitar, but he's not in the room.
No, someone just starts playing something and we just go from there. It's very organic, and I think on this record, writing this record reminded me of like when I first started playing music. Like it was like, oh yeah, just bring your instrument over and let's just make some fucking noise and see what happens. And that's kind of how we wrote a lot of these songs, very organically, just jamming in a room together.
It was cool to get that to get that time. Sorry, to get that time to do that, because the way I looked at it a lot was, it reminded me of like local band days, and our lives get so caught up in touring and albums and the label and management and blah blah blah. Like there's so much stuff that goes on that takes away from what we initially started this band to do, which is just to write songs and make music and play them for people. And we got to get back to that with this and go back into our little shoebox of a room that's about this size, and with all of our gear and just being loud and being able to go off of each other's ideas. And we all kind of get there at different times, and people are working on different stuff, and we talk about what's happening in the world, and we talk about oh, that was such a cool idea. Yeah, it'd be cool if we, and it was very much in that collaborative sense. And that was kind of how, when we were writing our first record, that was the only time that we had ever had that before. So we kind of got to get back to basics and really refocus our sound because we had, the time to do so.
I think we were saying earlier that there a lot of different influences came through on this record. Talk to me about some of that.
Yeah, it came from all different places. Like, we were jamming a lot of stuff from the 90s, from the grunge era, Nirvana, Soundgarden,
Filter.
Yeah, Filter, Alice in Chains, stuff like Rage Against the Machine, Tool, Primus, A Perfect Circle, stuff like that, like complex music that we felt like was still like understandable and palatable, and wow, that's really what made them want to write a song like that. Like, that's kind of crazy. That kind of pushes some boundaries, and for the time it really did. And being able to reference music like that, music that was made in a room with microphones, not computers, with tape, stuff, you can hear the personalities in the music. And we really, really wanted to do that with this record because we felt like we missed that sound. And with this digital era and the way that the music industry is now, and, I'm not even going to go into that, but it all kind of comes back to 5 guys being in a band because they want to make music and make records, and they use music as their therapy, And like, for us, those are the bands that we reference, maybe not sonically on all of them and sonically on others, but it really, it came down to writing real music, I guess, like a real band. Whatever that might be.
Good segue to the song Real. Can we talk about that song, where it started, and maybe what's going on lyrically?
Lyrics.
I'm looking at you.
No, the song started off as a demo that I'd made just like one morning. It just had a melody in my head. It started with a little keyboard line. Lyrically, when we started kind of developing it, Austin and I, we were talking about just interpersonal relationships and how sometimes certain people try to overtake you. They try to change who you are. They try to imprint themselves on you, and how, depending on the type of person you are, you're more susceptible to that or not. And just, we wanted to kind of make like an anthem, if you will, about not letting people do that, about, reminding yourself of the things that you like, the things that make you real. So when it came time, we did a music video for it. And when it came time, we were like, well, let's ask our fans, so we, through our fan club website, we had just tons of fans submit little posters that they made of what makes them real. And I think, it's really easy in 2016 to feel lost because you're just being pulled in so many different directions, and you have a real life and then an internet life, and you have all this stuff you have to balance, that it's all too easy to kind of forget the things that make you you. And so this song was kind of as much as it was for our fans to be kind of an anthem, it was a reminder, to us to not let people do that, especially as a band, that we follow our hearts and we follow our minds, and as long as we remind ourselves of who we are, then we're not going to lose sight of what's really important.
Pain. When I first, did you want to say something more?
No, he killed it.
Yeah,
That's why I
yeah,
wanted
well
him to
said.
answer it.
Great answer. Wow.
Thank you.
Pain. When that song first came out, I mean, I just felt everything that you have experienced, for example, Austin, and the video was so intense. Let's talk about that song. And by the way, the graphic for that, I thought, isn't that a picture of some kind of procedure that you had?
Yeah, the single cover for Pain is a black and white image of my actual heart when I had open heart surgery.
That's why I thought it was more recent. That's why I thought it was, Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, Pain was, Tino kind of came with the track, and I instantly kind of clicked with it, and I was really excited to write for it, and a lot of it I kind of recorded on the spot. There was a couple of lines and a couple of the verses that I didn't really write, and I just went in there and I said whatever's going to come out, and that's what I'm going to do. And it was cool for me because it was very real to me, and it was very exactly the situation that I was going through and the situation that I have to deal with often. And it's always good to put that emotion into a song and to really dig into yourself to pull that out, because I think the listener can hear that and can appreciate that and can relate to that. And I made the song, the lyrics of the song as they are is kind of a journey from showing you my pain to telling about how everyone experiences it, whether it be spiritually, emotionally, physically, whatever it may be, and that we kind of have to realize that everybody you see on the street and the stranger that you meet walking out of the door in the morning, they're going through different things and different issues, no matter what it may be, and there's somehow, as humans, we have to relate to that.
Right. There's a song I especially love called Down the Road. What can we say about that?
That's a tune.
A
A tune.
That song's about, just missing somebody that you've lost. We left it kind of open-ended on purpose because it wasn't supposed to necessarily mean somebody passing away, but more just that longing for connection with somebody that you once had connection with. And I think that song was probably is on the record, maybe one of the more left field songs, but we all just kind of started jamming that one, and it just felt so right in such a weird way, because when you do something that's brand new like that, but it feels so good, we were like, this is it, there's no reason to not pursue it.
Let's talk about those instrumental tunes that are on here. One is called Minus and one is called Plus. Talk about, how did those little things start? Were you just kind of doodling around in the studio and that sort of happened? Or
Yeah, kind of. I mean, especially with this album, we wrote over 40 songs, different types of stuff, all kinds of music. And we whittled it down to about 20, and then from there down to about, I think it was 12 or 13. And when we were putting the songs together, we realized we wanted like palate cleansers, if you will, to kind of like reset before a song starts. And it was against the advisory of our producer, because he was not a fan of those. He said, we just give them the rock, give them the songs. And I was like, yeah, but like this kind of sets up the song.
Trying to paint a
breathing
picture
space.
Yeah,
here.
we wanted to set a vibe with this album and really including that kind of stuff. We've never done interludes or anything like that. And with this album, we wanted to challenge ourselves to do those kind of things and kind of get weird on like a Nine Inch Nails kind of vibe, like real like industrial kind of grime sound, whatever, something that you wouldn't expect from a Mice and Men. And really like, and then with a song like Plus, that was like the perfect segue into Away. And it really does kind of like, they're supposed to transport you to the place where you're about to visit, I guess, when you listen to the songs. And we felt like they were absolutely crucial to the album as a whole, because we look at it as a journey from start to finish. And it kind of like helps push it along, I guess, in a way that it's not just like song, 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 which is usually what we do, and no problem with that. But this album it's not a collection. It is a collection of songs, but it's more than that, I think. It's a story, kind of.
Do you worry? Not the word worry isn't what the word I'm trying to think of. But are you concerned, or do you make anything of when fans go, well, they're not the same band anymore. They're not heavy anymore.
I love when people say that we're not heavy. I think it's hilarious.
If you
Come to a show.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. I mean, it's not. It's for sure.
checked.
It's for sure not worry. Like, it's kind of a thing where people are gonna like, what's the what's the scale? How are you judging that? You know what I mean? Like, is it from our first 2 records? Because we've already made those records. Those songs are there. We've got it all there. And I guess for us, we would worry that we weren't challenging ourselves musically by making the same music over and over and over again. And our job as musicians and as human beings is to grow and to learn from what we do. And if we're not working with a producer who's pushing us, or if we're not pushing ourselves, or each one of us pushing each other to do something great and to go out of our comfort zone, we did that a lot on this record. And I think I would be worried if we didn't, you know, because then we'd be doing a disservice to ourselves, to our fans, and just to music in general, I guess.
There's another song on here that I really, really love, and it starts out with your vocals. It's called The Hunger.
Yeah, that song was the first song from this record that we actually wrote. We I think wrote the instrumental for that sometime in maybe September or October of last year. That song, you know, what's funny is that song went through so many different changes, and, you know, it had so many steps in its metamorphosis that listening back to the original, it's almost kind of hard to decipher. But, you know, I think with everything that was going on with Austin and his health and the things that were going on in the world around us, and, you know, for me, the lyric of that, you know, I was on Facebook one morning and I was just kind of reading people's negative opinions about either a political candidate or something, and I was just kind of, you know, or gun control or something, and just kind of seeing how sometimes the worst situations, people almost remove the emotion out of it so they can either politicize it or just so they can give their opinion on it, rather than realizing the humanity of things that go on. And to me, you know, it was immensely irritating. And, you know, just like, open your eyes, like, take a look around. It's not supposed to be anything but sad or awful sometimes, the things that happen that we can't explain in the world. And I think that song came out of a lot of frustration. And I think for all of us, you know, if you listen to the instrumental, it's just very poundy and grindy, and it's very irritated almost, you know. And for us, that was a song that felt really, really good to do, especially when we play it live. It's just, I don't know. It's very cathartic in its own way, and the verses of that ended up changing completely. Ended up even musically.
I totally forgot that we had a different verse for it. I was like, how did the original verse go? And now I remember it. Yeah, it's so crazy how the songs can like take shape over the course of time, and then the actual final draft is what's on the album. But then all the steps that it took to get there, it's cool.
You know, talking about, you know, things that are going on in the world, did I understand the Game of War was written as a reaction, if you will, or part reaction to the San Bernardino shooting?
Yeah, I you know, that was so close. A lot of what you hear or you see is, you know, stuff going on in the Middle East or stuff going on in Europe. For us to have something like that happen in our backyard was kind of alarming. I just remember I had terrible trouble sleeping that week. And I woke up at like 3 a.m. with just the song in my head. And I just kind of sat at my little computer where I demo stuff and just got it all out. And I remember that when I was done with it, I had saved it and I just felt better and I went back to sleep. And then, you know, I showed these guys. I don't think it was ever even really written specifically to be in a Mice and Men song, but the guys were hugely supportive in hearing it. And, you know, we talk about this record making it more organically. One of the big things that I think was a game changer for us is how much time we spent talking. You know, we'd get to the studio and we would spend hours every day jamming, but we would spend just as long talking to each other about how we're feeling, about things that are going on in the world, you know, just to have a dialogue and to be able to talk to your best friends, you know, your family about how things are going. And, you know, when I showed them the song and it was finished, you know, they asked, they're like, can we put this on the record? I was like, I would love to, because I think it kind of, you know, it kind of fit in perfectly with this record, in that this record was hugely therapeutic for us to make, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. I think you have to get going, so
I ramble.
That's okay.
I'm a rambling man.
Ramble.
Where are we going? We have a signing at Best Buy.
Yeah, I know. So you have to get going.
We're late.
So,
It's 5?
By the way, I love the fact that your fan club is called the Ampersand. I didn't realize that until recently. What's in store for them? What do you got? Anything special that you've got planned?
We always are running like new contests and things. We're always working on new content. Now that we're about to be on tour, there's about to be a ton of stuff.
Yeah, it's cool because now like we'll be headlining, so we have full control over the content that we post and everything that we try and do, and it's just a cool outlet. It's like a small community of our fans that talk to each other and they meet up at shows and they like go to shows together and stuff like that. It's like a little like it's our family, you know. The Ampersand, they make our logo. It's our logo, you know. Like they're a part of our band, a part of this movement that we have, and it's for sure so sick. They got to be in our music video, you know. Like we like to do stuff like that because we ourselves are fans of music and fans of bands, and so we're like on the inside like thinking like, oh man, I wish my favorite band did that. Let's do that. Okay, cool, yeah. And it's like we get to do that stuff now, so it's cool.
You know, I think it's kind of cool, by the way. I don't know, I'm sure you saw that Monkey from Korn mentioned, some bands he would like to tour with, and he mentioned of Mice and Men. So, of course, I took that and immediately called Dave Shapiro and said, dude, did you see that? Or emailed him. You know,
that's awesome, yeah.
So I hope that works out.
Yeah, we'd love an Of Mice Korn tour. Let's
be amazing.
do it!
Korn, if you're listening.
Are
Rotting
you
in Vain is the jam.
I'm creeping through these labyrinths. I find another dead end to the weekend. Is this real life?
Blood on the Dance Project, Blood on the Dance
Project
Floor.
Blood on the Dance Floor. There was Stand and Fight, which weren't too bad, but then we found out a hardcore band had that name. There was This Evidence in 8x10s, which might take the cake for the worst one. There were a bunch, yeah. But
Yeah, they're all the worst ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.